This is Madison Hoyt and Ryan Morey's sheep brain dissection project. First, we're going to show some photos that we took pre-dissection. This first image is of the top of the brain, which gives a great view of the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brain stem. The cerebrum is divided into two nearly symmetrical left and right hemispheres by a deep longitudinal fissure. In this image, the hemispheres are labeled in blue and orange, the cerebellum is green, and the brain stem is pink. The surface of the cerebrum is covered with large folds of tissues called gyri. The grooves between the gyri are sulci. The deeper sulci are often termed fissures. The fissures are used as landmarks to divide the surface of the cerebrum. These regions, also known as lobes, are more visible from the side view of the brain. The colors purple, green, blue, and yellow label the four lobes of the cerebrum. The section labeled in purple at the front of the brain is called the frontal lobe. It is associated with movement, speech, and impulsive behavior. The blue section behind it is the parietal lobe. This section is responsible for sensations such as pain, temperature, and touch. The temporal lobe is the green portion of the brain that lies under the purple frontal lobe. It is responsible for hearing, taste, and smell. The yellow section at the bottom and back portion of the cerebrum is known as the occipital lobe, and it is responsible for vision. This is in the back of the brain because the optic nerves need space to switch the image to its proper position. The back portion of the brain, labeled in orange, is the cerebellum. Proportionally, it is much larger in a sheep than in a human. It controls voluntary movement, balance, motor and sequence learning, and reflex memory. Sometimes the cerebellum is referred to as the little brain. The red underneath the cerebellum is the brainstem. The brainstem connects the brain to the spine. This is the bottom view of a sheep brain. From this angle you can see many structures such as the pons, the medulla oblongata, pituitary glands, the pineal gland, olfactory bulbs, cranial nerves, oculomotor nerves, the optic chiasma, and optic nerves. In this image, the section labeled in yellow is the pons. The pons are the part of the brain that links the medulla oblongata and the thalamus. The medulla, labeled in dark orange, is located behind the pons. It is the continuation of the spinal cord within the skull, forming the lowest part of the brainstem and containing control centers for the heart and lungs. The small pink dots show the location of the pituitary glands. These are a kind of endocrine gland located near the center of the brain that secrete hormones that regulate stress, growth, and reproduction. The pineal gland is a small pinecone-shaped gland between the two hemispheres. It is purple in our diagram. It is located in the center of the brain to distribute melatonin evenly for regulating sleep patterns. The optic chiasma is the most prominent structure on the ventricle side of the brain, and it lies below the optic nerves. Optic nerves, in light green, send images from the back of the retina, which is part of the eyeball, to the brain. The optic nerves crisscross each other to process images into the correct position. Our eyes see images backwards, and the optic nerves are responsible for altering the image. The olfactory bulbs are a pinkish-purple color. They are located near the nasal area and are involved with the sense of smell. As you can see in these images, they are located at the front of the brain because the nose is in the front of the head. The olfactory bulbs in sheep are so much larger than the ones in humans because of the heavier reliance animals have on their senses. Black arrows point to the cranial nerves. The arrows show that they are under the pineal gland. These are nerves that emerge directly from the brain and go through the skull base to transfer information to and from other parts of the body. The oculomotor nerves are labeled in gray. They enable most movements of the eye, and they help raise the eyelid. As we bent the cerebellum back away from the cerebrum, the superior colliculi and the inferior colliculi became visible. The superior colliculi are the two large bumps, and the inferior colliculi are the smaller ones directly below. These are both parts of the midbrain. The first incision we made into the brain was down the longitudinal fissure, separating the left and right hemispheres from each other. This picture shows the inside of the brain after we made this separation. Closest to the front of the brain and highlighted in yellow is the amygdala. The amygdala are structures of gray matter in each cerebral hemisphere that are heavily involved with experiencing emotions, particularly the emotions of fear. The fight or flight instinct is controlled by the amygdala. Logically, it makes sense for it to be in the front of the brain, near the lobes that are in charge of how or what you feel. The streak of nerves that spans across the parietal lobe that connects the two hemispheres of the brain is referred to as the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is right in the middle of the two different cerebral hemispheres, and it is highlighted in pink. It connects the right and left hemispheres and allows for free communication between them. Highlighted right underneath the corpus callosum in red is the hippocampus. The hippocampus is located in the center of the temporal lobe. It is mainly responsible for the sorting of your memories. It is located in the center of the brain because everything the brain processes must pass through it. When passing through, the hippocampus can decide if that memory is important enough to store or not. Under the hippocampus, in green, is the thalamus. The thalamus is located near the brainstem, but also has a pretty central location in the brain itself, and therefore plays a large role in the transfer of information between the body and the different cortical structures around the brain. Lastly, on this photograph, near the bottom middle portion of the brain, highlighted in blue, is the hypothalamus. It is located between the temporal and frontal lobes for proper regulation of necessary bodily functions. The hypothalamus regulates important functions like hunger, thirst, and arousal, as well as plays a part in controlling body temperature. In this picture, the outer part is the gray matter and the inner part is the white matter. The difference between gray matter and white matter is that gray matter is where different parts of neurons, for example the cell bodies, dendrites, and terminals, interact with each other. The transferring of sensory signals takes place in the gray matter. White matter is made up of mostly axons, where it connects different regions of gray matter all over the brain to each other and makes the transfer of sensory information to the frontal lobes as efficient as possible.